Thanks for giving up this Sunday afternoon to be here. I really appreciate you lending me your ears and your brain to listen in. Yes. I'm Catherine Penno. I'm the principal audiologist and clinic owner at Perth Audiology and Hearing Clinic. I went to UWA across the river here. So I've been in the industry for many a decade, and I hope I'm pretty casual in the sense that if you've got questions, throw your hands up and we'll answer them as we go. I might be deep in like an animation, and then I'll go to you if you like. So a bit about me: I'm a mum. I've got a girl and a boy. I've got a poodle called Albus Dog, a husband. My mum's here today. Thank you, Mum. And I'm a cyclist, so I try to ride my bike to get around Perth. Try and reduce the CO2 output, but also stay active, fit and healthy, so I can stay independent and strong on my feet. And I really love food, so I really appreciated Abby's talk because I learned a lot as well. So here we go. It's Sunday afternoon, right? So I want you to think about the scenario I'm about to paint, and then at the end put your hand up if this has been you. You invited the family over for a barbecue. In fact, the extended family's come over. You've got the barbecue over here sizzling. Nice steaks on the barbecue, some fish maybe and some veggies. You got the kids over here playing backyard cricket. Yeah, you're out. So loud over there. You got the speaker going here. The Bluetooth speaker is on. You got some good tunes. And you're sitting back at the table and you go, life is pretty good. I'm feeling really happy and grateful. And then all of a sudden, the table erupts in laughter. And you go, what's just happened? You've just missed the punchline to a ridiculously hilarious joke. Put your hand up. Has that been you before? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And maybe it's not just this scenario. Maybe there are others. So today, we're going to have that scenario in the back of our minds. We're going to go through all these things today. So I hope to answer some of your questions when it comes to hearing, your ears, hearing health, hearing loss, and your balance. Because all these systems are intertwined. And as humans, we're social creatures. We're programmed to connect. And if you want to live a long, independent, good quality of life, all these three talks today play into that. And some myths of aging and frailty, which is really fun, a bit of a pop quiz. So I hope you're listening. And I also like to think about the why we need to recognise and learn these aspects, and then what can be done about them. What do you want to avoid as we age in this world? And what do you want to maintain? Your independence, your social connection, being engaged, and what do you want to achieve? And that's sort of the theme all three of us are speaking about today in terms of the body holistically. The peripheral hearing system, so your ears, these things that are glued onto the side of your head. So you've got the pinna. So we're going to walk through this section pretty quickly so we can talk about the evidence between hearing loss and your balance system. So you've got your outer ear. As I'm talking now, your pinna is picking up the sound waves and funneling it in to your ear canal. And in your ear canal, a healthy ear canal will produce wax. Your ear canals are self-cleaning, so you don't need to put anything into your ears at all. Earwax should naturally migrate out of your ears as you're talking in that jaw movement, and if you lie down and sleep, the wax will fall out naturally. Yes, we have problems in the outer ear. They can stop sound waves going through to the inner ear, and things like microsuction technique or clean your ears can be part of some people's journeys, but not everyone. Generally, the populace has pretty healthy outer ear system. The next pathway to your hearing organ is your middle ear. This area here has three smallest bones in your ears, the ossicles, malleus incus stapes. It collects the sound waves and amplifies them to send it into the fluid-filled cochlea. That's your hearing organ. The inner ear is made up of the cochlea and your balance of vestibular system. In this middle ear area here, you've got your eustachian tube, and that's to do with pressure. So if you're going up or down in a lift or plane, you need to equalise or pop your ears. This is the mechanism or the area that it occurs in. And issues can occur in that area as well. If something's happening in the outer or middle ear, you've got a mechanical or a conductive element, and usually there's a medico or some resolution there that can occur. So sound wave travels through these three pathways and lands in your hearing organ, the cochlea, and that's where all the magic happens. I've got a pointer that doesn't work on the screen, hence my arms up here. So that cell-shaped shell here, that's where all the magic happens. So the peripheral hearing system really collects the sound waves and then sends them to this slide here, the brain. And the brain does all the heavy lifting as you like. Well, if you can understand. And there's a lot on this page because hearing and listening are really nuanced areas that we take a little bit for granted. It's like we grow up in a world where we think listening is passive. And as we grow up, say maybe with our partners in our 20s and 30s, we have this communication behaviour where we yell at each other from other rooms of the house and we can hear them. And then you're together for 30, 40 years, maybe more, and your communication behaviour doesn't change, but your listening, your ability to hear does. And then there's a gap here that we need to overcome. So listening isn't spoken about much, but it's where all the magic happens. And we have this process called auditory processing. So your ability to hear speech in background noise. And if the signal that your brain is receiving isn't clear, then your brain has to work harder to fill in that gap. So when you're going into a scenario like the barbecue or a meeting or a cafe or a restaurant and there's a lot of background noise, your brain's ability to hold a cognitive load increases. You're really looking at the person's lips or their body language. So the brain that does all the computing, if you like, and then there's all these pathways that sound travel up to, and listening is an executive function. So you're listening, you're remembering what someone has said, and then you want to communicate back. So your brain does a lot in the listening process. So the signal's not clear. If this signal here isn't clear, this signal, not so great, and then your cognitive load increases. This is key as well, communication behaviours. If I did this, I think you know what I was feeling. But then if I said something like, Hamish is my husband, Hamish, dinner's ready, come downstairs, in that manner, and then he could see he could hear I'm angry and then see my body language, he'd know. But when we remove a cue, a communication behaviour, and you've got a hearing loss, then the load is heavier on the brain to process that, and then that results in maybe some frustration or anger or embarrassment. So we know that it's not just hearing alone that makes up communication. There are a lot of non-verbal cues that help to make communication between people great. And this is a real life magnet that I've got in my clinic that I give out to everyone who comes in, because some people have normal hearing but hearing issues or hearing loss, and they get hearing aids, but they also need to know that it's not just you got hearing aids or an implant, things are working. So you need to work on these behaviours as well. So if you think about the scenario where you've been together for 30 years but you haven't changed your behaviour, these skills I always say, especially when parents come into my clinic, oh, won't the teacher just teach my kid this? I'm like, they absolutely will, but it's our responsibility to practice good communication behaviours in real life, to roll all of that to everyone, so that when we need it, which is always, we're behaving like this. So the takeaway from this first section is your ears pick up the sound, the brain does the processing or computing, and if there's hearing loss, there's an unclear signal to the brain, so therefore it has to work harder to overcome it. Any questions about this first section? No, good. Silence. Yeah, I believe you. This lady just said it's true. You're probably going through these scenarios in your head. Identifying hearing loss. So this is also a really interesting area as well. So for example, if I fell over and broke my leg and I was then in a cast and had crutches, you'd go, oh, let me help you with this. Let me accommodate a little bit, because it's very visible what that person might need. But hearing loss is invisible, right? So it's a bit like, I've got a bit of back pain. It's a bit more, I think I can cope. I think I've got a hearing loss, but I'm coping, right? I've got a bit of a mild back. Actually, I've got a bit of a mild knee issue from something I did yesterday. And I'm like, I'm here and coping. So I'm okay. I can hear, but I don't understand the clarity. Well, the other one I hear clinically a lot is, I can hear, but you mumble. So it's not hearing. Yeah, we know, you know what that's about. And a hearing loss is a tricky one because it's invisible and it's stigmatized a little bit, right? Like maybe people, when I say hearing aids, go to this old image of a beige banana, but in actual fact, hearing aids, Bluetooth, they're medical grade devices that have incorporated Bluetooth functionality. And so the median age of the clients in my population, in my clinic, are about 45 to 55. I'm part of the cycling community, so it's a bit biased. We've got these proactive individuals who come in going, I want to manage now that sore knee, sore back, mild hearing loss, so that it's easier to say resolute rather than wait until they can't cope. So the stigmatism is still there around anything in healthcare, I think, but in particular something like hearing loss, because we're also going through this psychological phase of acceptance. I'm aging, I'm in a bit of grief or denial about it. And then when they finally get to acceptance, that's usually 9 years later. Yes, question.
When do you know that yourself need a hearing aid and it's not just the audiologist saying you need a hearing aid because I'm going to get the money for it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. This lady at the back just asked me, when do you know? I think maybe the better question is, you asked, when do you know you need a hearing aid? But the question is, I think the better question is, when will you get benefit from a hearing aid? Will you get benefit from it? And I think that's very subjective, and it's about going in and having that trial period and seeing for yourself if you are going to get that benefit, because that's very much the nature of that business landscape. It's a very vertically integrated landscape in the world with hearing aids, because 5 hearing aid brands rule the roost and set these clinics up, which is why we're independent, because we're not a churn and burn model. Is there another question? Yes.
Yeah, you might cover this later on, but we've all heard the expression selective hearing.
Selective hearing. Yes.
It's necessarily gender-based, but is that
I also like it. Hello,
is that a real thing, or is it
is selective hearing a real thing or a myth? I wish I had that in my true or false section. So that's a really good question. That comes down to attention. That question really, where is your attention focused when someone is trying to communicate to you? Because another scenario I hear, and I've certainly been at before, you might be sitting down watching TV and your partner's telling you something incredibly important and expecting you to respond, and then they'll elbow you and be like, hey, I have been talking to you for the last 2 minutes. What do you think of this? And you're like, oh. So it depends where your attention is focused. And that leads me back to this slide, which is this. Getting the person's attention first, because we also have this natural tendency to roll into conversation without giving that good eye-to-eye contact. That's selective hearing broadly. That's not a medical or evidence-based, but very true in real life, and I witness it in clinic too. Yes.
Sorry, the one thing that you did say though, right back on the earlier slide, is your brain's in overdrive, straining to listen.
Yes.
And that's actually what happens. I'm absolutely convinced of it. So you're sitting there, you're watching television, because you're having trouble hearing, your brain is overloaded, so it doesn't hear. You naturally block out external interference or external noise.
Yeah. So I'm getting to that as well. Thanks, mate. I love it. So we're here. We're trying to identify subjectively this hearing loss, perhaps, or hearing issue. And then the research shows us that people wait on average 9 years to actually, people find out they've got a hearing loss, and then they wait till they can't cope and go, well, yeah, I might have to do something about this. And then what happens in that 9 years? So you're here now, plus 9 years. So imagine what's happening. Your body's changing. Your partner's getting frustrated at you for having to repeat themselves a million times. You're starting to feel the speech is muffled, you're starting to socially withdraw, I don't think I'll go out because I'm probably gonna, what if I miss the punchline to that joke or mishear the question again? And then you get into this cycle. And we know over these 9 years, the evidence shows us that people report increased social isolation, loneliness, depression. These are all research studies that have been happening for decades, where we know that when people don't manage their hearing loss, their quality of life is poorer overall. And that can be a pretty general statement to healthcare, I think. You've got that mild back pain, you don't do anything about it, well then, yeah, you're likely, it can stay mild for so long, and then something ticks you over the edge, and then it becomes a chronic issue. And then you're trying to remediate, if you like. So we see this a lot clinically, frustrated partners, or, this chap in the middle who's missed the punchline of that joke. So you've got these behavioural changes, and then also these brain changes. And the other way to depict the 9 years is, year 1, your behavioural changes are just a little bit. Some people talk too loud, or some people rarely talk softer because you speak the way you hear. So sometimes the clarity of your speech disappears because you can't hear that at the beginning and ends of your sentences. The brain is more tired. Exactly like Pete was saying here, you're trying to exert energy to watch and follow the sentence in these shows, but someone is trying to talk to you here, and you're missing that part of the conversation. And brain changes, so your cognitive load goes up, poorer quality of life, and then all the feelings of the psychological aspects in the middle here are words that people write in my online health forums that they feel about their listening ability. Someone says to someone, how do you think the hearing's going? Oh yeah, it's okay. And then I go, well, what about your listening? What is your listening capacity? And they stop and they think, oh, they're different. And I go, yeah, they are. And then that anxious is a word that I see on almost all my paperwork, all my digital forms. Embarrassment, loss of confidence, mishearing words, and so on and so forth. And then over 9 years, everything compounds. And then you're at this side here.
Isn't it normal to have hearing loss as you age? So how do you know if there's
Really good question. So this lady asks, isn't it normal to have hearing loss as we age? Absolutely. As we age, we have this privilege of getting wrinkles, our vision changes. What's not normal is the impact on the brain, right? So we've got hearing loss. How does that impact the brain? And then your quality of life. Yes. So there's been maybe 1 or 2 individuals in their 80s who I've met who have normal hearing. They've just got excellent genetics and other things that have been in their favour as they've aged. But most people have to do something about it as they age, yeah. So yes, it is, as we age, we've got to get these wrinkles, changes in our body and our sensory organs. Yes, it is very normal.
so
Yes.
more people that think so? Who needs to
Yeah, good question. That's like $1 million question. Some people are happy just to cope with it. Yeah. Some people are stuck in the denial phase for many years. Grief is a large part of hearing loss. Some people don't want to do anything about any of their chronic issues. Yeah. So that's their level of motivation towards change. I think individuals here, you come to EverStrong because you want to stay strong as you age. Because there's certainly the other side of individuals who don't. So then these are subjective, they're the ones prior, but then we've got objective measures. So you can get a diagnostic audiological assessment to determine what's happening. And I always recommend seeing an independent audiologist because those people will give you their time. And independence doesn't mean independence of recommending all the brands, someone not working in like a big clinical systemized environment. But you can have hearing loss and maybe not have any impact from it as well. It's like you can have mild pain and not have significant impact from it. So the takeaways from this section are untreated hearing loss leads to behavioural and brain changes over time. And we're going to look into the brain changes of the auditory pathways more now. Any questions on that first part? Yes.
How often should you have your hearing?
Oh, good question. So how often should you have your hearing checked? I'm a big advocate of proactivity in healthcare. So if you're working around noise coming sooner, and a lot of these mining resource sectors have laws now, so I'm saying, of course, the younger clientele coming in, but in general, you know, we're always getting our eyes checked and our teeth checked every year, every 2 years, but getting a baseline around 55 is really good, because, you know, a lot of the changes in our body as we age start to happen from 40 to 50, right? So if you've got a good baseline around 55, the likelihood is you might not come back till you're 60 or 65. Because hearing loss is not a quick deterioration over time when it's age-related only. If there are other factors like you have cancer treatment, you've got cardiovascular, there's many things that can contribute to it, but in general, it's like a beautiful age-related issue, if you like. And then brain changes, increased cognitive load, listening fatigue, and reorganisation. So we're going to talk about that. So this is another word-heavy slide, because this is where all the magic happens in the brain, right? It's important to understand that when you've got a sensory deprivation like hearing loss, well, and you're not doing anything about it, then the brain's going to remap and use its energy elsewhere. And usually what we see, and that function is called cross-modal plasticity or reorganisation. So if you've got a hearing loss, the auditory cortex of the brain will remap to a visual input. Usually, this is the example I'm using today. So your visual input really improves. You're really looking for the visual cues of the lip reading or the body expressions to fill in the gap. So your cognitive load is increasing. Sometimes it goes to tactile. So some people go, I can really feel that or smell that, because your brain's reorganising that mental load, really. It happens quite quickly. So I always say that mild is a very misleading word, because mild, yeah, I'm coping, can lead you down the pathway to something else. Well, harder to follow speech and noise, really. So this is an example of the auditory cortex of the brain remapping more to visual, all the tactile functions as well of the brain. So it doesn't stay dormant. Your brain is plastic for life. You can change it. It's very plastic when you're 5 years and younger, so we're birth to 5, acquiring more speech, language, fine motor skills. But as we age, it's still very able to change and get better. Well, not get better, it's not the right way, get stronger or improve its cognitive load. And so we think, okay, well, what do we want to do something about it? This leans into your question. Yeah, and I think the long and short of it is you do, because you can cope while it's mild, but when it gets to moderate, severe or worse, that's when you can't cope. And that's when we generally see people come into clinics and go, well, I bought these expensive hearing aids when I had moderate hearing loss or worse, and now they've ended up in withdrawals because I'm not getting benefit. And that's because nothing is particularly wrong with the mechanical aspects of your ears, but you've got age-related hearing loss and your brain's remapped its resources to somewhere else. And so people try them for a week or two and go, oh, I'm not getting benefit. It's like, oh, I've done weights for 3 or 4 months with the EverStrong crew, but I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, what's up with that? Well, the reality is, like, changes in the brain as we age, they take a little bit longer, but they will happen. But the key is consistency, okay? So good news, something can be done about it. Let's talk about the study. So this young person came in and had sudden hearing loss. So I woke up one day and the hearing threshold has just dropped to moderate severe. And then they did a functional MRI and they showed that the brain already started to remap itself in image 8 to the visual cortex. And then they did this assessment here, pre-hearing aid fitting, auditory only. So we take away all visual cues and you're just listening. What can you hear? Repeat this sentence and background noise. And you can see the before hearing aid fittings and then the 30 days post hearing aid fitting, that significant change and improvement from wearing the hearing aids for all of their waking hours. And in this participant, it was 10 hours a day plus every single day for 30 days. and the brain has remapped to the auditory cortex, which is awesome. And their scores just improved, 65-year-old. So the takeaway is, if something's happening, do something about it, because the benefit you get, in particular in speech and noise, will be better. So I hope that makes sense, because that's not an uncommon scenario. Somebody can't cope, they come in and they get hearing aids and they end up in the drawers. And then I'll say, oh, how long have you had the hearing loss for? How long has your brain been deprived of sound? Because so it's remapped is essentially what's happened. But you can improve from there. And if you've got an Apple phone, and the Apple AirPod Pros, you can start there, because they have some medical grade features built into their Bluetooth headphones now. So I call them situational devices. You can get some benefit from those products, and then you can scale up if you want to medical grade devices. Auditory training is a no-brainer. That is something everyone should do. Questions? Yeah, so how do you do auditory training? The best one I like to recommend to my clients is with an ebook. So start with one that you're familiar with, and just auditory. It's like weight training. You do these reps. Or auditory training is literally just using your ears. You might be sitting down having a coffee, not visually reading the book, but listening to the book. And it might be you start with a book you're familiar with, and then you scale up to books you've never read or heard, and practice there. Yeah, absolutely. And then when you go into a challenging listening environment, your listening skills usually have improved if you've got normal hearing. That's the general understanding. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to ask about when you are listening through audio, are there any better ways, like to see people the high top things, or the ones that you put over like that? Are there any that are better or worse?
Not really. Personal preference if you're going to use Bluetooth headphone. I would say good quality speaker as well. Like sometimes it's better to listen binaurally, equally with 2 ears in the ambient environment. That's always key. Just make sure there's no distortion.
I know a lady that only wear her hearing aids when she goes out. So at home she doesn't wear them, and someone can be ringing her, and she doesn't pick up the phone. So from your last slide, you were saying that regular wearing that helps with the brain.
Absolutely.
So that means if she's not wearing it regularly, it's not helping the brain, is it?
Doing something is better than doing nothing, right? But so that's some people say to me, like, oh well, I'll only wear them when I go out. And I was like, oh, cringe inside. A little part of my audiological heart dies, because when you're at home and it's quiet, we actually still want you to tune into all the environmental noise around you, because it's your brain that does the filtering. It's deadly quiet in here right now, because obviously you're interested, maybe. But, when you're going into a restaurant or a cafe, it's your brain that filters or suppresses that background noise. So if you're not constantly having input to your auditory cortex of the brain, when you go from quiet, putting hearing aids onto a restaurant, it actually can overload the cortex in an unhealthy way. So the situation you're wearing hearing aids here and there, I'm on the fence about that. My preference is good use, good behaviour from the beginning, from when you're awake to when you go to sleep. If you're up 8 hours, 10 hours, that's beautiful for your brain to really get the benefits from that medical grade device that you've bought. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if you intervene early, then your brain doesn't remap.
Yes.
But if your brain remaps,
Yes.
and you get hearing aids,
Can it
does
remap?
it remap back to normal?
Yes, but your hearing loss is still prevalent. That is we haven't cured hearing loss. What we also sometimes see is that there's research now to show us that if you use hearing aids consistently, so good use of your exercise program if you like, then your hearing loss is less likely to deteriorate quicker over time as well, because you're stimulating those pathways. And if you have, we can talk about that after. I'd love to know more. Yes.
Just a quick one. I teach in a tertiary environment, and a lot of young people these days are wearing pods all the time, or over-ear devices all the time.
Yes.
Sometimes that's to reduce sensory overload in whatever mental health space they're in. What's your view on that long term for hearing help?
Yeah, I have a lot because my subspecialties are vestibular audiology and tinnitus retrained audiologist, or tinnitus retrained therapy TRT certified audiologist. A couple of things that I'll quickly answer. So you're depriving your brain of this world stimulation. So what we see in individuals, two things: the noise-induced hearing loss acquired from wearing these headphones for long periods of time is greater. So people are getting hearing loss earlier because they're using these things on, and that's the culture we've also developed, working from home, but my headphones on, listening to more, volume's really loud. Repeated use frequently over time causes hearing loss earlier. So that's acquired. And the second one is because you've got active noise cancellation features on, the brain is then deprived of auditory stimuli. And then when an individual goes into a noisy environment, they can't cope because they haven't trained their brain to cope in noisy environments like this or a lecture theatre. So that sensory deprivation is also, I'm against it. The phenomenon there is called auditory toughening. And I think a lot of OTs and physios are also on the same page. So if there's a situation where we use something to decrease that sensitivity, well, we've got to be thinking about those long-term implications of it as well. So it's a bit of a grey answer because we need to know the individual circumstances, because if they're wearing them, they're going out socialising, well, that's a huge benefit. Then if they're just going to stay at home and not wear the headphones, so I don't know, that's a bit of a fine balance.
I observe that when they have the headphones on, they're not socialising with peers. So I run group classes. They're not socialising with peers as much. As a teacher, it's difficult because their spoken responses are often very quiet. So I'm the one that's doubting myself, going, "Oh, old woman can't hear." But some of the people in the class I can hear perfectly well. And then it turns out when I say to someone, "Can you speak up a bit?" and they do, everyone goes, "Oh, thank you."
Yes. Yes, that's true. And because they can't, you speak the way you hear, so so there's these long-term effects of wearing active noise-cancelling headphones as well. So, balance, I love this. So, this slide here shows your peripheral hearing system. I put a circle here to depict the vestibular system, is what we call the inner ear, and your inner ear is made up of your vestibular and cochlear apparatus. And it's this beautiful organ here, pink and yellow, you can see that. And they're neighbours that are essentially joined here, and they share this nerve that leads to all the information that goes to the brain. So hearing helps with spatial awareness. So if someone's running up behind you with their high heels to surprise you, you hear that. If someone's riding behind you, rings the bell, you go, "Oh, cyclist there, better move," etc. So all this information works in this tiny organ. If you have a 5-cent piece, it's only half the size of that, if not smaller, in our bodies. But so much information coming from the vestibular cochlear apparatus. Then if we zoom in even more, you've got the 3 semicircular canals on each side, plus a utricle and saccule. So who took the lift when they came up today? Oh, so you're taking a lift. Your saccule's going, you're standing still and stationary, but I can feel you moving. So your saccule in your body helps with this motion of plane, and your saccule this motion of plane. Your semicircular canals rotationary. So if I spun or I bent over to do my shoelaces, the vestibular apparatus sends us that information to your brain, as well as vision, head, neck, to say, "Hey, this is what you're doing." What we can have is dysfunction of the vestibular apparatus as well. So these crystals in your ears, your otolith organs, the utricle and saccule, the otoliths can break off, and as you're bending over to do your shoelaces, you can get vertigo for a little bit and then disappears, and you think, "What's happening here?" That's positional vertigo. Physios love saying, "Oh, everyone's got, that's positional vertigo." But you can have 2-3 different types of vertigos going on at once. Until you know what's happening in each area of your vestibular apparatus, we go, "Oh, what is it?" Vestibular vertigo is the beautiful one. That's the one everyone wants to get because you can cure it almost straight away. So we can have these vestibular dysfunctions, and if something's going wrong in the hearing aspect and the vestibular aspect, well, then your balance is off, and then so on and so forth. Who are these issues happening there? Your balance is made up of 3 beautiful areas of your body. So you've got your proprioceptors, so your muscles, bones, nerves feeding back to the brain, saying, hey, I'm standing here on one leg, or I'm doing a backflip, or you're lifting weights. That feeds back. At the same time, you've got your vestibular reflexes, your vision. So I took your vision away, you can still stand there, and your brain goes, yeah, I'm standing there, or yes, you're sitting there. You've got your spinal input as well, and your head, your colic input, and this all leads into stability. And your vestibular and coccygeal apparatus work together to also say, hey, I'm doing this in this plane of motion or space. But then when something goes wrong in the balance, when you've got hearing loss, the brain's ability to hold that balance information changes. So if you've got untreated hearing loss, you're not doing anything about your hearing loss, you're at a greater risk of fall. I like this graph, your functional ability. You're independent. Oh, I'm not as steady as I was 5 years earlier. I'm not as steady as I used to be. But you're not doing anything about it. So that function decreases over time. Or mum's slowing down a bit. And then you have an illness, something like COVID, just tips you over the edge. And you drop down to needing some dependence, some help. And then your recovery is taking longer. And then you never fully recover and you're not doing anything about it. So you're at this borderline between being independent and then needing help. And when you've got hearing loss and you're not doing anything about it, that line to recovery is lower towards dependence. Okay? A mild hearing loss puts you at 3 times the risk of a fall. Proactive treatment for hearing loss helps in the long run, keeping you on your feet. So does your muscle mass, which Abby has said in the short form in his crew drill into you, as I'm told, often with their evidence. In a nutshell, your diet, how you exercise now, especially with weight training, we know that walking is not enough to keep you upright and independent. And a lot of the research shows that as well. And there's single-sided exercise to challenge your balance. I think mild is a very misleading word in healthcare and one that gives you no real information to work with. Oh, this is mild, you'll be fine. I hear it from GPs. And I think, well, actually, that mild is very impactful for that individual when it comes to a lot of things. Questions about hearing loss and balance in your vestibular system? Yes.
So if I was to improve my hearing by hearing aid, would I be able to do a one-leg stand?
Con, we might need to work on a research project there. Great question. Oh yes, with your eyes closed as well. All right, let's get true or falsing. Okay, I've got a couple of prizes too, so you know, just yell it out. First one to yell it out. Is this statement true or false? I'm too old to start exercising. Oh, come and see me at the end for a prize. I've got like 9. I don't want to give them out. Yes, it is false. It's too late to build muscle mass after 60 off. Gosh, oh, did you give them to this crew beforehand? You've been well trained, I like that. Aging is unchangeable. Yes. Yeah, that's just a number. Aging is changeable. Starting consistent weight training now will help me in the long run. True, yes. Yeah, you're on a true one. There you go. Good. Astute. I like it. Sorry, you're over 80. Nothing can be done. False. Yes. Good. That's right. Hearing aids. Oh, yes. Good. It is false. Oh, who's that true down here? All right. To the back of the class. Here we go. You have to stack the chairs up here. So, a pill from my doctor will fix everything. We are in a culture of prescribing. What about describing? Have you heard that word before? It's crazy how much we prescribe in this day and age. Yes, it's needed. Don't necessarily, I'm not a medico, but also think that you can also be described from a pill. Like that from a GP, which was brilliant. memory loss is just part of aging. Controversial one. The 50-50. Depends. It depends. So we've got the concept of the healthy aging brain, right? So you're not going to say perform as a 20-year-old in many aspects of your life. So some memory loss is actually healthy. Some. So I threw that in there because I don't like to throw people off. So,
But if you say the brain can change its neuropath, then somewhere along the line, then that has to be to the degree false.
absolutely. Yes, I agree with that statement. So you can keep training your brain in certain areas to be great in that particular area. Yeah.
So you said it was true or false. This is the or.
That's right. Yes. Hey, nice. Having a mild hearing loss leads to a greater likelihood of falls. Yes, true. Takeaways from here. Start now, it's never too late. Be consistent. Quality every single day. Stay positive and purposeful. I'm almost done, everyone. Hang in there. Here we go. The Myths of Aging and Frailty. I absolutely love this. I saw a GP talk at a conference I was at recently, and he was sensational. So I got super centurions from him. Have you heard of these super centurions? People who live to 100, but they're super. And this guy he spoke about, Robert Bachand from France, at 106, he set this record on the track for cycling 25 kilometres, let's say in an hour. And then he was like, I think I can beat that. So he's 106 when he did this. He was consistent with his training for a year, maybe a bit longer, and he beat it. And the key takeaway from all our presentations is if you do something now and you are consistent, it will pay dividends in the long run. What they found with these super centurions were that they had community. Hello, EverStrong community. So they had community. They had a purpose. So they had a drive and this willingness. When they woke up, it was like, I'm awake. I've got to solve these problems and do these things. So they had this purposeful as well to getting up. And they had accountability, people to see and visit and do things just to get done. They were positive. They didn't smoke, they had good nutrition, they had interest, exercising. Yes, genetics plays a part. If your parents live till 90 to 100 and you keep doing what you're doing now, you're probably going to live till that age too. So genetics does play a factor. And then of course, attitude. Start now. If it's mild, do something about it, be consistent and stay positive. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions? I'm hanging around anyway, so you can always come chat to me.
Can I just ask?
Yes.
I just want to confirm this in my mind.
Yes.
You said that hearing loss generally as we age is to be expected, and that it will more than likely progress if we don't do anything. But if we catch it earlier, then we're likely to slow the progression of hearing loss. Is that right?
You've heard and understood it correctly. I should caveat that it depends on your genetics and your lifestyle. So if you manage it early, we usually see the decline in the hearing loss slow versus if you do nothing about it, it usually drops off quicker. But genetics comes into play and your environment that you're in. And if you're sick and you have to take certain medications that are ototoxic, toxic to the hearing organ itself.
But it will progress probably regardless.
Yeah, that's what when we look at population data, that's exactly what happens. Yeah. So the older you are, 75 plus, 85 plus, a likelihood that you'll have a hearing loss. Absolutely. And if you're thinking about this, actually, I just see Dirk at the background. We had a quick chat beforehand. There's a lot of hype in the media at the moment about dementia and hearing loss. So I get this question a lot. I work in a GP clinic. Oh, what do you reckon, Kat? You know, the hearing loss causing the dementia. There's no direct causation there. So I like to be very clear. There's a healthy aging brain which might have some memory issues, very small, but then there's an unhealthy brain or a diseased brain, and that's dementia. And if you've got a family history of that, you're at a greater risk of your brain changing quicker. So if you have, the research in that area shows that yes, if you're predisposed to those biochemicals in the brain, say your mom or dad had dementia, you've got a hearing loss and you're not managing it, well then the brain, and you've got those biotrackers in your brain, are probably going to change quicker. Okay, so that's where we are in that understanding the unhealthy or diseased brain and those other comorbidities there. Yeah. Correct. Oh yes, go ahead.
I understand, like, if you've got a hearing aid and you use it, but you're in a very noisy environment anyway, it's still very difficult to pick up conversation.
Yes. So I always so that to me, I have 3 sort of questions out there. How is your hearing aid programmed? Is it programmed correctly? Has the person who fitted you with those hearing aids followed evidence-based practices like real ear measurements to fine-tune the hearing aid? And then have you been wearing the hearing aid and also been doing auditory training to help as well? This is not really a straightforward answer, but I hope that helps a little bit. Thanks, saying maybe not. Come talk to me after if you like. Did you have a question?
I wanted to put in what the question was.
Oh, so the question was, yes, thank you, I'll repeat it. This lady asked if you're wearing hearing aids in like a restaurant and you're still not getting benefits from them, or the hearing aids aren't really working. That's why I answered it saying that I have many questions around that. How has the hearing aid been fit? Has it been done with evidence-based practices to see what's going on? How often are you wearing the hearing aids? Are you doing any auditory training as well to supplement that? Yeah, yes.
The other problem is we often get home like watching I'm always very
Yes, where do they get your information? I would be too. I hate those unsolicited calls. So in the field, if you've been into one, they'll just repeatedly call you because they think they've got permission to do it. You should just tell them to stop if you want, and then they should stop because that's illegal. Yes, those are very fair questions. That's exactly how I would feel. Yeah. Done. Over to you, Paul.
Beautiful.